Today I want to talk about a book that was recently recommended to me by someone whose opinion I hold in high regard. The book in question is titled World War Z, An Oral History of the Zombie War, written by Max Brooks and published in 2006. This book is an enthralling apocalyptic horror novel that documents the outbreak of and subsequent world war against the undead. The book is written as a collection of interviews. It contains first-hand accounts of the experiences of various key people around the world in the time leading up to and for the duration of the war. Even though they are presented as individual histories, they are really about the ability of humanity to survive such an outbreak. These oral histories are presented by a journalist who works for the United Nations Post-War Commission. Because the content was originally presented to the chairman as a report, from which the human factor was excluded due to the sole requirement of facts and unbiased data, the author decides to utilize the rest of his research and so creates this novel. The book is divided into 5 chapters titled Warnings, Blame, The Great Panic, Turning the Tide, and Goodbyes, with each chapter containing multiple passages from various contributors. The 2013 action horror film of the same name differs in almost every way to the content of the book. While it is a great movie and one which I thoroughly enjoyed, it fails to convey any of the themes contained in the original text. None of the plot lines, social or political commentary, or any of the characters are portrayed in the film. Luckily, I watched the movie before the book and therefore missed out on the deep disappointment of having to see something that so badly butchers the original piece of work. The way the story is told is fragmented and unsettling, and I believe the writer did this intentionally to convey the fear and panic the populace would have felt. Each chapter or section begins with a new person, time and place, which serves to keep the reader off balance and creates a sense of unreality, like it was a mockumentary and not a serious horror novel. There is a lurching feel to the text that is difficult to follow at first because of the shifting time and space settings of each section, and from many reviews I've read, some readers never recover from this. The journalist, as a narrator, asks questions during the interviews if he thinks that they are pertinent, and this serves to bring some semblance of flow to the text at times. However, each interview is short enough that each edition simply adds to the jerkiness of the writing style. It is fast-paced, and each chapter adds some new facet to the growing sense of unease that is being manufactured. With every new edition, the story builds and the suspense grows, as does the reader's excitement. I finished the book and immediately began reading it again because I did that thing where you get excited and read the book too fast. That for me is a sign that it has surpassed being a good book and can safely be qualified as a great book. As a horror story, this book is entertaining and exciting. As a parable, it is terrifying. Unpleasant truths about us as a species, a country, a society, and a community that are laid bare through this test are presented more clearly than the story itself. The documented changes that are seen as a result of the war, not only in the environment but even more so in society, are truly awful to contemplate. Political regimes fall, governments collapse, and the economies of most countries, including the major world powers, are destroyed. The very threads of what holds people together as a society are frayed and broken as the fabric of the social construct begins to unravel. Old religions are abandoned in despair or renewed with vigor as people struggle to make sense of the new reality into which they have been thrust. One of the parts of the text that I liked the most was how there was a political angle to some of the story. It closely mirrored what you would expect to happen in this situation, if this was reality and not fiction. Most countries had at least some prior warning of the impending catastrophe, yet most did not give credence or heed the warnings due to institutionalized skepticism. Israel was one of the only countries that survived relatively unscathed in the beginning due to the complete pragmatism influencing their decision on how to deal with the situation, arising from a unique cultural and political outlook which demanded investigation of any threat, regardless of its improbability. They close their borders and are able to ensure the relative safety of their population. One of the main ways they achieve this is to have the incoming citizens walk past detection dog cages at the border, so that the dogs can identify those who are infected. This was not the first or only time this method was employed by a country, yet it was the first time it was described in detail and it caught my attention. I love how dogs, as man's best friend, were employed to once again safeguard the well-being of us as humans. The biggest influence I took away from this piece of work as a writer was how the identification headers were used as place markers to signify a new time period or section of the story beginning. I used this in my life writing piece because I felt that there was a great way of breaking up the text so that the reader could differentiate between the separate parts of the narration in their mind. If you are a writer, I believe that you should also be a prolific reader, and if you are either or both of these things, you should definitely read this book. Thanks for watching.
There you go.